Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. At UFC 274, Charles Oliveira defeated Justin Gaethje in the main event. And regardless of what the UFC would have you believe, Charles Oliveira is still the UFC lightweight champion. The only place that he's not the lightweight champion is on the UFC's website, and maybe when they write him a check for the next fight. That's the only places that he's not considered the champion. The real fans know he's the champion. The fighters within the lightweight division know he's the champion. The media knows he's the champion. It's kind of a weird debacle. But anyway, since he won at UFC 274, people are wondering what's next for Charles Oliveira. So that's exactly what this video is going to be. I'm going to give you my opinion on who I think Charles Oliveira will fight next. I'm going to also talk about when I think he might fight next, where he might fight next, a nightmare scenario for the UFC lightweight division. And on top of all that, I'm going to give you an early prediction for if Charles Oliveira fights the opponent that I think he's going to fight. I'm going to give you an early prediction for that fight, and I think that's one of the most compelling fights the UFC can make in all the UFC, in all the divisions. I think it's one of the best fights the UFC can make. So first off, at UFC 274, Charles Oliveira defeats Justin Gaethje in the main event via first-round rear naked choke. It was a very impressive performance, but what really we need to talk about is what happened on Friday. Charles Oliveira, apparently there was some discrepancies between the backstage scales and the official weigh-in scale. So Charles Oliveira thought he was on weight. He comes into the official weigh-in, weighs 0.5 over. So the UFC decides, you know what? We are going to strip Charles Oliveira of his lightweight belt. If he wins at UFC 274 against Justin Gaethje, he is not the champion. But if Justin Gaethje wins, he will be the champion. So a little bit of an unprecedented scenario. So strange. I get it that he missed weight, but it was by 0.5. The discrepancies there between the scales, a lot of fighters talked about it. It wasn't just Charles Oliveira. And the UFC even acknowledged it. Mark Ratner acknowledged it. There was some messing around with the scales between other fighters. And it's 0.5. It's not that much. He did not garner an advantage with that 0.5. There's a 1 pound allowance for non-title fights. Why not just fine him a little bit extra or whatever you want to do and keep the title on the line and keep the title in Charles Oliveira's hands? So it's such a debacle, but in most people's minds, Charles Oliveira will be defending his lightweight title in his next fight. So that asks the question, who is he going to defend it against next? And I believe there is only one fight for Charles Oliveira. I think there's no other fights that the UFC should even think about making. We need Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev for the technically vacant lightweight title, but I believe Charles Oliveira is defending his UFC lightweight title against Islam Makhachev. In my opinion, this is one of the most compelling matchups the UFC can make in all of the UFC. There's only two other fights, as far as my personal interest level, that would either match or surpass my interest in Oliveira versus Makhachev. And those two matchups, potential matchups, are Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev or Francis Ngannou versus John Jones. Only those two matchups. Other than that, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev is super compelling. I mean, you have Charles Oliveira, who has amazing jiu-jitsu, amazing submission game, great striking. He's well-rounded. He's improving every time out. And then you have Islam Makhachev, who just wants to come out, take you down, and submit you and beat you up with ground and pound. And it's just so interesting, how do those styles clash when you have a guy that's so dangerous with his jiu-jitsu? Can Makhachev take him down? We've seen Oliveira in the past, a long while ago, where he's been able to be taken down and beaten up on the ground, and people have been able to avoid his submissions when Oliveira is on his back. Can Makhachev do that? Also, is Makhachev even going to want to take him down? I suspect that he will want to take him down and just avoid the submissions. But if he doesn't, how does Islam Makhachev deal with the striking of Charles Oliveira? Because in my opinion, Charles Oliveira is a far superior striker. Then you have the fact that Makhachev's on a 10-fight win streak. Oliveira's on an 11-fight win streak. It just makes perfect sense. In my opinion, this is a better version of Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson that we never got. I think this is a better version of that fight. And I know people are going to talk about, well, Islam Makhachev doesn't deserve a title shot. He hasn't beat anybody in the rankings. He hasn't beat anyone good. And while I understand that, he's accepted fights with these top fighters. They just haven't happened. So at that point, by default, there's no one else that deserves it. Dustin Poirier already fought for the title. Justin Gaethje just lost. Michael Chandler's already lost to Oliveira recently, had one win since then. There's nobody else that deserves a shot more than Islam Makhachev. And regardless of what you think of his win streak, I get it. His best wins are, a short notice Dan Hooker, which hasn't aged very well. A short notice Bobby Green, where he TKO'd him. That was his most recent fight. But still, the sustained dominance within the division and the fact that he was supposed to fight RDA. RDA pulled out. He was supposed to fight Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush pulled out. It's not like he was ducking these fighters to try to make an easy path to the title. It's just they didn't happen for whatever reason. I know Islam pulled out of some of those fights, but he's looked so dominant against the fighters that he has fought. And I think the only fight to make is Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. I know there's some talk of the UFC doing Islam Makhachev versus Beneil Dariush, but Dariush has come out and said, I'm not going to be ready till like the fall, early winter. At that point, what are you going to have Charles Oliveira sit out so that Islam Makhachev can fight a top-ranked guy? I think that makes no sense. The UFC is going to want to keep Charles Oliveira active, and I don't believe they're going to book that fight. I'd be shocked if they book that fight, and I would hate if they book that fight, because then you have Charles Oliveira, he's not going to fight till next year, because the only two people that really could get a title shot right now are Makhachev and Dariush. So if those two fight, then who knows what kind of damage they could come out from that fight, how long they would have to wait, and then we have to wait to see Oliveira fight, and the belt's technically vacant at this point in time. I don't want to see that scenario. I think they just do Oliveira versus Makhachev. If Beneil's ready afterwards, maybe Beneil could fight like a Chandler in between there. I don't know if that'll happen. And then Beneil, if he wins that fight, he could be next in line after Oliveira versus Makhachev. But I don't think they should book Makhachev against anyone else. I think they need to book Oliveira versus Makhachev. Now, there's some talk about when this can happen. Charles Oliveira says he doesn't want to fight till December. There's been some talk about UFC 281, which is at the end of October in Abu Dhabi. I believe it's taking place on Fight Island. And I think it's very possible. The UFC likes to go to Abu Dhabi with Khabib Nurmagomedov as the main event. What better fighter to have in the main event at Abu Dhabi than Islam Makhachev? He's going to be the fan favorite there, but Charles Oliveira does not really care where he goes and fights. He just fought Justin Gaethje in his home state of Arizona. Charles Oliveira doesn't care. But I don't think the UFC should do that. I think it's possible that it happens. It could be even very likely that it happens. But I want to see Charles Oliveira fight in his home country of Brazil. He's not fought there since he won the title, since he fought for the title against Michael Chandler. It's been pretty much Las Vegas, and now it's been Arizona. I think that's pretty much it. I think he fought Dustin Poirier in Las Vegas. I think he fought Chandler in Las Vegas. I'm not 100% certain on that. And then he fought Gaethje, obviously, in his home state of Arizona. I want to see a big pay-per-view event in Brazil with Charles Oliveira as the main event, technically fighting for the vacant lightweight belt, but Oliveira would actually be defending it, in my opinion. I think that's the way they should go. I would love to see that. Maybe Jose Aldo as the co-main event against a contender at bantamweight. That would be super interesting, like a TJ Dillashaw. I think they should do that maybe in November, December. I don't know if they're planning to go back to Brazil, but they weren't planning to go to London twice, and now all of a sudden they're going to London in July after they were just there in March. So I think it's definitely possible. I think Charles Oliveira is a massive star in Brazil, so why not book that fight in Brazil? Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev. Give Charles Oliveira the home field advantage for a change after all he's done, the last couple fights, fighting all over the world. I think they need to book that in Brazil. As far as my early prediction for Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, I'm 50-50 on this fight, but I've been a big Charles Oliveira believer for a long time, and I just think Charles Oliveira is far superior on the feet. I could see him lighting up Islam Makhachev on the feet, Makhachev deciding to shoot for a takedown and getting guillotined by Charles Oliveira. He snatches up your neck before you even realize what's happening, and I think there is a very good chance that Charles Oliveira could get a submission over Islam Makhachev. I will do a full breakdown and prediction when we get closer to the fight if that does happen, but let's talk about the nightmare scenario that I think could happen, and there's multiple nightmare scenarios. One, Charles Oliveira has called out Conor McGregor. And there is a chance, just because the UFC sees a lot of money there, the UFC could book Charles Oliveira versus Conor McGregor for the vacant lightweight belt. And I personally think this would be egregious. Conor McGregor has not won a lightweight fight since he defeated Eddie Alvarez almost 6 years ago, November of 2016. Conor McGregor no way deserves a title shot. I get that he's a superstar. I get that the casual fans will buy the pay-per-view. I do not want to see him fight for the title. I get that Oliveira wants it. I get that the UFC sees money there. I think this would be particularly egregious. I think this would be a slap in the face to the fans, a slap in the face to some of the contenders who are trying to work their way up to a title. And I think the UFC shouldn't make this. And I hope that they won't make that. But that is a potential nightmare scenario. And honestly, it wouldn't really surprise me if they did. I don't think they will, but it would not surprise me. Another nightmare scenario that I could see going on with the lightweight division is the UFC in the past have asked fighters to fight on certain dates. And if they say, I can't fight on that date, or I prefer this date, they have just been, happy to go ahead with an interim title fight. In this case, technically Oliveira is no longer the champion. So let's say they ask Oliveira to fight in August, and he's like, I can't be ready for August. I don't want to fight in August. The UFC can say, okay, well, we're going to book Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor, and we're going to make it for the vacant lightweight title. They don't want to have that lightweight title vacant for long. That is another potential scenario I could totally see the UFC doing. Or even imagine Charles Oliveira gets injured. He can't fight for the rest of the year. They are going to make two other fighters fight for that vacant lightweight belt, and it'll be absolutely appalling for me as a fan to watch the lightweight belt change hands with Charles Oliveira not in that potential matchup. But it's very possible that that could happen. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we see Charles Oliveira Islam Makhachev somewhere between, September and December of 2022 in Brazil. That would be my ideal scenario. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and also comment down below. Who do you want to see Charles Oliveira fight next? Is it Islam Makhachev or somebody else? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.